pieces that were going to be needed for other departments. It wasn't this. This wasn't in it at all. And so that really concerns me, especially when we're talking about office space. And I don't know what kind of square footage we're discussing. I don't know what that amount is. I sit there thinking about the water facility and that whole upper level that I don't think was ever built out and why we can't use that. But at the same time, I'm a small business owner that's building a building, and I know what I'm spending, and I know what this amount is, and it doesn't make much sense to me. And so I really have a hard time swallowing that amount of money. Plus, if you're saying this is what we need to invest to do this project, then tell me what this investment's for the future. 2 years from now, when we're out of this space, this is what we're going to be using it for. You know, you've given none of that part. I don't know, I don't really understand what staff backfill is. You know, that's a huge number, and so I need a little more explanation on what that means. And now the ongoing support, I get all of that, but what I wasn't sure of, does that start this year, or is this 2 years from now when we actually have everything implemented? Why would we be paying for it now? So please help me with that.
Yes, I'll do my best. Thank you. The software maintenance, the first year is actually lower than the 56,000 that's represented here because it's prorated based on when we would go live with this software.
Can you talk a little louder, please?
Yes. The first year is less than that dollar amount because it's prorated based on when we're getting the software. But we represented the first full year with that dollar amount so that you knew what we were committing to. And then the optional application support component would not start until 2 months after implementation of the first phase. So that would be basically a year from now when that option would come into place.
And the backfill?
And the backfill are employees. So if we pull Rebecca out of being a controller, which we'll need to do that, we need to backfill her duties. And so it's backfill to pay for those duties. You know, something just struck me. A lot of what we have reviewed prior to this, we've talked general numbers, infrastructure, what we need to do software. We were projecting what we thought was our best guesses because we weren't really sure until we had a contract in hand and we started to negotiate that contract. We had a better idea what the numbers of hours that we were going to need to put towards this implementation, how many hours that vendor would be providing, and how much we will have to provide. So some of these numbers were still in kind of a big picture, like when we projected 4.5 million plus contingencies, we were doing our best to make those projections, but as the contract became finalized and negotiations finished, we had a better idea of what we were looking at. What type of infrastructure are we going to need to implement this software? And how many hours of staff time will we need, and how many will they provide? So these numbers have been more solidified, and so they are coming in more specific numbers to you tonight.
Councilman Campbell?
All right, I'm going on a different, I have just some questions that I wrote as you were both speaking. How long have we used the HTE system?
Oh, we've had it almost 20 years.
20 years. That's so disappointing to hear that we've not been moving with technology. And we've waited 20 years, and we're already 20 years behind.
Can I interject
and it takes
something?
you so long. Sorry.
I just know, I want to interject something what you say right now before. We did, but we didn't, we tried to Band-Aid it. And so I just want to add that comment.
Well,
keep going.
You can buy technology tonight, and it's out of date tomorrow, and I do understand that. But it's so disappointing to think that we're having to do a whole system. And I don't know if there's any other way to do it where you piecemeal it, because the HTE is gone. I mean, you know what I mean? So you have to start somewhere. And y'all have assured us that the system we are going to purchase, we can add to. We don't have to get rid of in 10 years. And right?
They provide updates, so they'll keep it current and updated along with, as long as we pay our maintenance and do all those stuff.
Sure.
But yes.
Yeah. Okay. And my second question was, who is going to do the actual training of our employees? This project manager or who?
It's a team effort, part of the what SAP, the Quintel implementers who implement SAP. They are required to do training, and we'll do some train the trainer. Yes, so we'll train our SMEs, and then those SMEs will be able to train some other employees. But that's in the contract too for Quintel.
Well, I still want to know who's training who, and how are they going to do that? And are our employees going to be mandated that they're trained 20 hours to learn how to do their job? I mean, how are we going to make this easy? And I know it's not going to be easy because I have gone through one of these before, and it is very difficult. It's very difficult to get the buy-in if the employees do not understand how to use the new system. So I want to be sure that our employees are going to be offered that opportunity, and it's going to be a consistent opportunity to train them so that they can be good at their jobs, because we want them to succeed.
Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, if I can add a little bit of color onto the training approach. So the vendor would be developing the curriculum for the training based on our actual install and our processes. So we would be taking what we build and then building training material based off of that. They would be putting our subject matter experts, those who work in the department that are going to be the leads working on this, they're going to go through that training twice. And the purpose is for them to really understand it well so that they can be the point of contact for the department users when they need help, so that they're not trying to call IT or trying to call the vendor. They can get immediate help by walking down the cube, next to them. And then the other thing that we have today with HTE is nobody knows how to use it well. We've all figured it out, but nobody is the subject matter expert who can continue that ongoing training when new employees are brought in. So one of the artifacts at the end of this effort would be where we have a training manual that we know how to use in training future employees as they come through the system.
So are we going to use our training rooms up by IT to train our employees, or are we going to train them actually on the job?
There will be a little bit of both, but we will have large-scale classroom-based training in the IT training room as to get a bulk of the people through there. There will also be online training available, so somebody could go to their desk if they weren't able to make that or needed a refresher.
Okay. And my last comment is that one of our sister cities has just gone through this, and in talking to some of their employees, it's been very, very, very difficult for them to do that. And if we go forward with this, I do not want this difficult for our employees. I mean, and I know it will be a little bit. I understand that, but I just want to try to make it as easy as we can on them, because they really can do so much more if we give them the right tools.
Councilmember Campbell, I can't agree with you more. I mean, this is so large. That's part of the reason that we're bringing in someone to help us with the change management, to help us identify where we can help employees through this process better, and help us see things we may not see because we're too close to it. The last thing we want is frustrated, angry employees. But I'm going to say that and then turn around and say, there will be frustration.
I know.
We can't minimize that.
No,
We talked to other organizations where they saw turnover as a result of implementation, because, well, we just don't do that. It's new processes, and some change easier than others. So I want to manage everybody's expectations that it's not going to be all rosy, but we are going to work our hardest to make sure employees are involved, that we communicate to them, and that we do this together.
Thank you.
Carolyn? Well, I've got to tell you, I commend on your foresight in your attempting to do that, because we all know, and I think that's why it's been 20 years. The reason it's been 20 years is because to have to spend this kind of money on the project is very concerning, and I respect the questions that council asked, but I also have to say how much I respect the thoroughness of what you have presented us tonight, because you have included the workspace, you have included the consultant to help us know what we need to do with our employees, and I think you've done a great job with that. That's just my opinion, and I appreciate that. I know it's a lot of money, but we can sit here and spin our wheels and wait another 20 years and really be behind the back door. I mean, and our systems become nothing but less useful to us. So I have that to say. But the only question I have is, what do you mean by contingencies? Plus contingencies. I've heard that several times now. This is what we're going to spend plus contingencies. What does that mean?
That could be, and what we're hoping is that we've nailed everything down. But in case we haven't, we will have the ability to purchase something that is needed, or maybe and I know we've got a lot in there for backfill, but it could be that we need an additional help with the backfill. I just want to be upfront that it could be any number of things, and we can keep you apprised of what we're doing and how it's going as part of that communication process. But no surprises. I didn't want any going forward.
And then this statement is probably very foolish, but it's something that I saw in the private sector that I saw that concerns me, and that is, because the money is there, I think we're all on the same page. Doesn't mean we have to spend it. Is that right? Are we all on that page?
Well, of course.
Well, I just...
No. Right.
Very good point, Councilmember Holman. And what I want to say is, when we negotiated the contract with Quintel SAP, it's all in. If they don't finish it in 22 months, they're on their own dime. So this is with their implementation. It's
to their completed project.
Yes.
It's not just at the end of 22 months.
Yes.
Well, but that's just the final comment I wanted to make.
Councilman Osborne. I'm sorry. Councilman Osborne asked first. So Councilman Osborne?
Two things. First of all, Quintel, SAP, the company themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we all know companies can fall. And even if we're in a contract or not, and we're in the middle of this situation and something happens, who else is out there that's going to be able to step up and either they're going to be able to finish the project, or they're going to, I'm just thinking, devil's advocate here, or in the future, 22 months from now, they go under. Who's being able to step up? Is there another company out there?
What's our recourse?
Yeah, that has this technology that's going to be able to step in and keep us going. That's one question.
Mayor, Councilmember Osborne, one thing I want to point out is there are payment milestones proposed in this contract. So first thing is, we wouldn't be out anything if they didn't deliver.
Okay.
So if for whatever reason they failed or went out of business, we would go out to the SAP partner community and engage one there. SAP is the largest ERP, enterprise resource planning software company on the planet, and there are, many, many options if something were to go south with the particular partner that we're talking about.
In fact, we did, in our reference checks, learn that it did happen on occasion that their implementer, because that's how SAP works, they hire other businesses to do the implementation. When it didn't work, those people were removed, new ones came in, SAP helped with that, and I believe in one instance, SAP came in and finalized the project. So,
Well, we always have to think exit strategy
yes,
at some point.
yes.
My last, I guess really this is more of a comment, and I know that you have, the change management consultants, but along with our own Sandra, I think this is, for morale issues, this is an exciting time, but it's also going to be a, not complete crisis, but it is going to be, a bit squirrely. Yeah. And I just want to make sure that Sandra has the time and is given to employees of, team building and things like that.
She will be a
Still do her job besides that job. I got you.
Right.
Yes, well, when we talk about the change manager, we are talking about New River. So it is another individual coming in. Sandra is supporting Barbara, and so there's a double benefit to this. We get the services of someone more than Sandra, so we're not burning Sandra out. She gets to learn from someone also who has different experiences implementing this. She has worked on implementation, so she does know the landmines, and so we're actually going to be using both of them.
Good. I'm sorry, last question. Mr. Dalkey, I know that tonight on the agenda are the two items, but to what rest of council has said, these other items with the building, all these other pieces, will you please be coming back to us with some ideas for discussion on why these are the only options that we have for some of this, and help us feel better about that?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Osborne, certainly, because I think what we can do better is to provide you what exact space we're talking about. It's right next to Franklin Pierce University in that building. What improvements are actually going to be done, what we can use it for afterwards, what other options do we have? Can we lease the facility where the old library used to be? We can show you the options that we actually evaluated and came up with this one. But absolutely, if this gets approved tonight, we will bring that back to council with more details as far as what we will do with the facilities. But there is a need. I just need to reinforce that there is a need to have a place, as Lynette talked about, to have these employees. Vice Mayor Pizzillo, you talked about being in a basement at Glendale, and we don't have a basement, but what we do need to do is sequester these employees someplace where it doesn't, they're not impacted day in and day out. But we do have a couple of options, and we can bring those back to you.
Thank you.
Councilman Campbell has additional questions.
My question was to piggyback with Councilman Coleman when she was talking about what happens if how long the contract goes, this, that, and the other. Who determines that the project is done, them or us? Who has the final say-so?
Mayor, Lord, Councilmember Campbell, the city will decide
city,
that,
okay.
correct. And so that would be by module. So let's say it's financials. So as we talked about earlier, there will be a test process that the department will sign off and say that the results that I got during that test are what I expected, and we're good to go. And then the city would then sign off that completed that module.
So until we're satisfied that the system is up and running and our employees are running with it, it's still going to have to continue, right?
Correct. It's not considered deployed or implemented until we say so.
Okay. And then this is really, I know, a lame question, but for this room that you want to sequester these people in, what are they going to do? Are they going to write the program? Are they going to talk to each other? Or is that where they're working? I mean, why do we
in the
need
room,
to
huh?
sequester them?
So, Mayor, Lord, Councilmember Campbell, a lot of that discussion will be process development. So tell us what you're currently doing. Why do you do that? Why is it important? What are the regulatory requirements for what you do? What are the reports that you need to create, for whom and why? When do those reports need to run? So it's really a significant business process mapping exercise to understand what we do in that particular area of the city. And then the company, the vendor, will go away for a period of time, configure the system to our process, bring it back, and then those people interact with the system extensively, making sure that when they attempt to perform that function, that it does what they expect. And so there's a lot of back and forth with testing the system and influencing, when I click this button, I get this error message. Can you, what is this?
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of interaction with the vendor
Are
that
we
they'll be
doing
working
it by
on.
department?
Correct. By
Perfect.
module, by phase, and we're proposing 3 phases. The first is financials, the second would be HR and payroll, and then the third would be community development and utility billing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilman Stipp.
I think it was Councilmember Campbell that talked about what do we do when they don't survive SAP. We own a couple hundred square miles of property because we were guaranteed that the builder could never go out of business. Is there a performance bond requirement? Do we have, it doesn't matter if we pay them in phases. If this thing only gets 3/4 of the way through phase 1 and SAP goes away, it's going to cost us a lot to get out of that. So is there a performance bond requirement in this?
And we are going to defer to council. We had Susan Rogers go through the contract, every single piece of it, and she's very, very good at what she does. So I don't know if you can answer it, if we'd have to ask Susan Rogers to do that. But
Can they speak tonight? Can,
Are they here?
We're going to have to
I'm
research
very
that when I
done
get
in-
back to you. I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm sorry, I can't
Sure.
hear you what you're
I'm sorry.
saying.
I said we'll have to research that one and report back. I can't recall off the top of my head what the requirements were on that. I don't know with this type of contract we would have put a performance bond in. I'll see if I
I
can
think
find
that's,
out.
I think on both sides, that's a valid question.
Yeah, it is.
I think that when we look at, I'm sorry, Bill,
No,
you
you
keep going.
keep going. No.
When we look at this system, just kind of, let's give a little talk here for the public out there, City Manager, where we were and how, I mean, I know you said it's been 20 years, but just talk about when we tried patching it up. We brought this in, we brought that in, and where did we end up that brought us to this point that we knew we had to do this?
You want to, I
Well,
can talk.
Either one of you, City Manager or Lynette.
Wanna
Probably
start?
have the history behind this, but what I know since I've been here is we have a system that we can't run reports on. We do manual workarounds. We have multiple what we call point solution systems. We continue to buy additional systems that we have to support. We have to support it through IT. We have to support them through maintenance, through contracts, in order to do the things that we would need to have an ERP system do. An enterprise resource planning system is one that is integrated across all of those departments and brings everything into one central location. Right now, when we have someone who wants to sign up for utility billing, we input the customer's data in there. But if you go over to recreation, you can't transfer that address. You have to implement it or put it in over there. There's no talking with the systems, and it's becoming very difficult to keep it up. We don't have the internal resources to keep an ERP system up and all of the point solutions that we now have out there.
And it's manual many times, and that's manpower, and that's hours, and that's money from the citizens. But that is the kind of approach I would like to have seen tonight. What if we didn't do it? What are the repercussions? What all that? We didn't tell a story on why we ended up where we are now, spending this kind of money. And the reason is because we didn't spend it before, and we tried to, and I use the word Band-Aid, we tried to ban. I can remember back in 2005 what happened. And I'm not the technician here, but the fact of the matter is we hired people, we got new programs, and didn't work, and they went away, and then remember we couldn't even use our telephone system. Remember the telephone system? We did the same thing, but we're going to buy this little widget. We're going to fix it, and nothing got fixed. And here we are, 73,000 people in the city and growing, and our departments can't work together. So that means they get up out of the chair, go down to and talk to someone, or get on the telephone. And in this day and age, that's a waste of money. So we need to figure it out, and I understand the frustration on the council tonight. Everybody had, I think, very pertinent questions tonight and concerns. And they still have some more, and I'm going to shut up on them so they can do them. So I just kind of want you to know where we're coming from. So we'll go first to Councilman Stiff.
Yeah, so we don't have an answer to the performance bond, so if we vote on this tonight, we're in no matter what, and we've got no protection that we know of.
Well, the performance bond is not the be-all, end-all of security on an agreement. This is certainly, as I understand it, a major company, and you're going with Quintel, which is your vendor, but then they're contracting with SAP, which is an established company. I
don't mean to interrupt you, but so was Weyerhaeuser and so was
disagree,
CalPERS,
and,
and they all went bankrupt,
all those
and we've got 200
back on
square
Wall Street,
miles of
too.
property. So I'm a little gun shy on $2.2 million. So
I think I can add to that as Dan was saying, that we will pay as they deliver. So if they go out of business, we only owe them what we've got so far. And
I think their hesitation is, okay, so we stop at this point. Are we really assured we have somebody else that will come in,
Yeah.
pick it up, and continue it without additional cost to us?
without a protection to the
Yeah.
city, that's all I'm
And so
asking for.
I
And
guess that's
The
There
other
are-
question that I've got, I'll move on, is about the building of the shell. Our library is less than 10,000 square feet. So if we're talking about building even a shell that's a concrete floor and no ceilings at $300,000, if we build a 10,000 square foot office space, that's $30.70 a square foot. That's an outrageous dollar amount for a shell. And I know we've just vacated the EOC on the second floor. I mean, we've got to have spaces. When we have this discussion about what options we have, I don't necessarily want to hear only about the money, the ones that are going to cost us money. We've got other spaces in the city that I think we need to talk about. And you know what? It may be uncomfortable. It may not be the basement, but it may not be the beautiful office that they're sitting in today. And we've got to be cognizant of that. $300,000 for a building shell is just ridiculous. And I know when I go and spend time, you know, all summer with the military, we work in horrible office conditions. And I'm not talking about the tents. I'm talking about where I work. And it's uncomfortable. And there's 50 contractors sitting in one room working for 25 straight days on fold-up tables and uncomfortable chairs. And I'm not suggesting that, but I know we can do it cheaper than $30 a square foot.
We will work to bring that back to you. What I'm hearing from council is let's revisit the workspace, and we'll work with Regis again on the numbers. So happy to do that.
City Manager?
Yes, Mayor, the city attorney just stepped out so he can confer with Susan Rogers, to find out on the performance bonds what our protection is. So he said it'd take about 5 minutes. So if council wants to recess.
I have a question too that
Or if
might
you have other
piggyback on that.
questions.
You
All
might
right,
need to send them back out
Councilman
again.
Loretano.
My question was obviously if there's a termination, because right now we say that they're going to work really great with us. You know, it's the beginning of the marriage. If things go sour, we only pay for what we got. What is our termination protection if they're just not holding up to what we want them to do? I don't want us to be on the hook for all $2 million if we decide that they're just not working out. And I don't know if that needs to go back to Rorik or not.
We can answer that with the modules.
Well, maybe we should ask the question to Rorik or Rorik, we're going to, I hate to do that. Sherry, would you repeat your question, please?
My question, and you may have covered it when you talked to Susan about this, but if things go south and we just say, we don't like this contractor anymore, we thought they were something that they're not, and we want to terminate it, we've paid up to point X for what we've got. What is the protection to terminate this contract so that we're not on hook? Do we have any protection if they're not meeting our standards to say, we don't want to pay the whole $2 million because you're just not doing your job? How can we, what are our ways to get out of the contract would be one of my questions.
Okay, and I'm reviewing the contract as we go, but we have a termination for convenience clause, which is a 30-day notice.
Can you put the
provision.
microphone up, please,
I'm
so we can
sorry,
hear, please?
it sounds loud to me, but
So while he's reviewing, can I ask another question?
go ahead.
This is real simple. Did you say
All right,
very
we're going to
low?
give you a moment to read.
Yes.
Councilman Campbell has a question.
I would like you to introduce Barry Dunn. We've been talking about him all night, if he's here.
You did meet Seth at the original
We did?
work session. Yeah, Seth, do you want to stand up? Seth Hedstrom has been the lead for this entire process
Don't even
and been
remember
working
him.
with us. But yeah, he was here along with, I think, Jonathan, and Kevin. Yeah, they were here late because their flight was coming in from Maine late.
Okay.
With him is Chad Snow. He is the senior, what is your title? Principal for Barry Dunn. So Seth answers to Chad. So
I
we
was
have,
looking for Barry Dunn.
yeah, no, Barry Dunn's a company.
Well, they
and
can
work
probably
for
give
Barry
you a
Dunn.
synopsis
Oh, I
of the
kept looking.
company.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Nice to see you, gentlemen.
Seth is the individual, if you approve the allocation of the money tonight for the third-party project manager, who you will see at the city for the next 2 years, full-time. Seth, that was the, wave again.
Yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Councilman Loretano.
I have a couple questions that aren't dealing with the attorney right now while he's reading the contract. You said it was tier 1, right?
Mhm.
Could you explain to the public what we're getting as tier 1? That sounds really good, but I don't think that it really explains the difference in the tiers.
See, I think, I'm going to just add one more. I think this is this is where sometimes the confusion gets confusing, because the presentation doesn't give the people outside of this room that are listening to this an explanation that is understandable, and what it all means. And so we miss that, and that's important that we don't do that.
Because I think if we explain it kind of in a way of what are we getting when we've got what our Commodore 360 computer that we're usually basically working on now type of system, as opposed to, the newest Windows system. I think we need to kind of explain that a little if we could.
Or iOS system.
Yeah.
Mayor Lord, Councilmember Loretano. So thank you for the opportunity to clarify what a Tier 1 software ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, is. So there are different tiers of the software based on the size of the organization that they support. And Tier 1 is the largest. So the largest companies in the world run Tier 1 systems. There are Tier 2 and Tier 3, and the city currently could run on a Tier 2 as far as sizing goes. But we would hit potentially a limit in how big we could grow with that system and find ourselves in another upgrade situation in the future like we are currently at with HTE. And so as we look to the future, we felt that a Tier 1 system was the right size for our current size and what our growth projections are over the term of how long we plan on owning this system. And so with the Tier 1, also you get the highest level of features and functionality. So the system is more customizable and capable of doing all the different things that we do at the city, whereas a Tier 2 or Tier 3 system might be limited and have very specific functionality. And if you want something outside of that, you're buying another system in addition to it or replacing it.
So we would have the growth for the future rather than saving a little money now and then having to spend it in 4 or 5 years to then go to what we need in that time.
Essentially, yes.
That's the piece.
That makes sense. Any other comments?
Just one, Chairman.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo.
Just real quick. This is a follow-up on comments that were made earlier on the return on investment. You had touched on it, and I don't know how you quantify it. I don't know if Larry can help you quantify that. But I kind of see as we move forward with the implementation, the individuals that are spending a lot of time doing the, offline, the manual processes, when it comes time to hire, now that frees them up to do other things. So I'm hoping we can stretch down the road the number of personnel we're going to need, because as a result of the technology and as far as the efficiencies it brings, we've got them working smarter, not necessarily harder. So again, I don't know how you quantify it, but I know just trying to get some of the data out of some of the systems, even in the finance, the time that was spent on there, you'll be spending on other things as well. So you may not need right away to bring in that additional person, because now you have freed up time as a result of the software. So again, I don't know how we would go about quantifying that, putting numbers to it, but that's how I kind of see, because I actually used it along with Bill, and I would go punch cards versus IO, but it's really outdated, and not only that, you have departments that are actually doing some Excel spreadsheets and things on the side just to track, sick leave and vacation, which makes no sense because you got a payroll system. So could that time be spent better doing other things or freeing them up? So again, I look forward to getting us back into the 21st century. So
Payroll.
And that's the information that we need to hear. That's the practical, everyday explanation that people want to hear, because most people don't understand. Many people listening don't understand the systems. If you've never worked in it, you don't really understand the technical part. It's important to also relate that, but with the other information. So I can see we're in a dilemma here. So we got some information from.
Well, reviewing the contract, I think the question is back to what are the remedies in the event that the contractor is not performing. We have 2 provisions built in. We have a termination for cause. Basically, they're not performing. So we have, we can cite to the reason for the termination. It does give the contractor an opportunity to cure, a 15-day cure period. We also have a termination for convenience, which is less onerous. It's just not working out. We want to go our separate ways, and that's a 30-day provision. So we have both the termination for cause and the termination for convenience. We also have the breach provision, and I think that's a question of, okay, if they're not performing and we terminate and there's additional costs, how is that covered? And it gives us a cause of action against the contractor in the event that we either, one, do it ourselves or have to bring another contractor in to cover it. So that's how the contract is structured. The two routes for termination, which are favorable to the city, and then a recourse.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? We have a motion on the table. We
I have one question.
Yes.
So obviously tonight we are voting on two items. One is the 2.153. The other is the 715.2. And what I'm just clarifying that I heard from the manager is the other items that remain on that list outside of that 2.8 million is going to come back to us for discussion. Is that what I've heard?
Mayor and Councilmember Stipp, there's the follow-up that we would be doing is it wouldn't necessarily require council approval for each of these items, but I want to be very specific. We also want to provide council the transparency of what each of these items are. So I do not see them coming back individually for approval, but I do see more information coming back. What is the change management? I think there were questions on that. And also on the Shell build out, are there any other opportunities to locate these sequestered employees and vendors elsewhere? What's technology infrastructure? We can provide more detail as far as what's anticipated there, backfill number of positions, et cetera. So I would approach it this way is if we do end up having to build the shell out, that one could come back to council for approval. As it relates to the other items, we can give that information yellow paper, keep you informed. If you have more questions, we can bring it back to you. But all of this is going to start moving fairly rapidly after we approve the contracts, and that would include starting to sequester our employees in interim places until we get something else set up. That'd be the approach I would suggest. There are other needs of council. I would like to hear those as well.
So you're saying on 7.1, we would delay that. Is that what you're saying? Voting on because that's the one, right?
No, that one, Mayor, that one is for voting on tonight. That's absolutely
Okay.
part of the ERP software approval as well.
And the 7.2 provides us with the skill sets that we don't have internally to do the implementation. So that 7.2 does follow the 7.1.
Okay.
Larry was just, we were just discussing about the backfill, and he's probably the area that's going to need the most support because it is impacting his area. So, and we need to move fairly quickly so we could either answer more questions or come back to you in a different venue on the backfill. But on those other items, we can address them in a variety of different ways, but definitely come back to you on those. The other two are the ERP system and then someone to help us with the implementation.
Works for me.
Okay, we're going to vote on it then. Okay, so all in favor? Do we want to do a roll
Better do
call
a
here?
roll call.
I think at this point I need a roll call. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Osborne? And this is on 7.1, correct?
7.1.
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
All right, we're going to go 7.2. Could I have a motion a second to authorize the expenditure in an amount not to exceed $750,200 for the third-party project manager services for implementation of the enterprise resource planning system? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Holman, and a second from Vice Mayor.
Campbell,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't,
That's all right.
I thought it was down there. I heard a motion from Councilman Campbell, and then a second from Vice Mayor Pizzillo. And I think we're just gonna vote on this, no more discussion, right? All right, roll call vote on this one, please.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
you've got your homework. We look forward to the next presentation with the information, answering all the questions that were asked, okay?
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
We have our homework for the next 2 years, so thank you.
All right, I am going, the next item is 7.3 on business, amending Chapter 3 of the City Code to create a standalone Economic Development Department, which I have pulled for tonight's agenda.
Okay.
So with that, we're really finished with that. So let's go on to, before we go on to our special meeting, this is the only time we have for this. So does anybody have anything they want to talk about, something they attended, or any questions for the city manager before we go on? Yeah, Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Just one real quick, Brian. Today, I really appreciate the updates you had with all the floods and the closed streets. It was excellent information. But when I went onto the city website, just a suggestion, and I hit that button that says for current updates, it brought me to the Facebook page, and it had all the different, posts on it. I think it would be helpful. I don't know how you do it technology-wise. Be helpful for those emergencies like that. When you hit the button, it goes to like a billboard, and that billboard has an update. And on that update, it shows all those open and closed, just like the information we had. So it'd be easy for them to identify it instead of going down through the, the various, the posts. Just a thought, because the information you sent us was great, but it was harder to find when I went on the city site. So just a thought.
Thank you.
Okay, any other? Yes,
I have
Councilman
something
Campbell.
for the city manager. This may not be appropriate, Brian. However, because of the confusion and the concern that we have had over the layout of the budget for the computer system, and those expenditures were under the authorized amount that you can spend without it coming back to council. Would it be appropriate for us to have some kind of a conversation at our retreat regarding perhaps lowering the amount of the authorization?
Mayor and Councilmember Campbell, absolutely. That's something that can be discussed at the council retreat. That policy has been set by council. So if there's a change to it, it would be appropriate to talk about. What you're referring to is if it's a budgeted item,
Yeah.
those items over $500,000 automatically come back before council. If they're a budgeted item. If they're unbudgeted, it's over $75,000 as a manager's authority for unbudgeted. But that's certainly a policy discussion that council can have.
Well, I just think because we thought we were adopting a computer system and only a computer system, and then when we see the breakout for the building and the personnel costs and everything, it kind of made us, I thought I missed a meeting, and I didn't remember missing a meeting. So I just think maybe if we had a conversation with all of council at our retreat, maybe we would feel better about how some of this stuff is going to come down, because obviously this is going to happen again. You were just kind enough to bring it and show it to us.
Yes, thank you. You did see it in aggregate, but not this kind of detail before. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Osborne.
So, Brian, I was reading recently, we were talking about tools for our staff to have, and there was this article I was reading about staff that's out there amongst the public, like maybe it's somebody that is about to have their water turned off, and this person has the ability with them, almost like the Square app or something, where if someone's home and they're about to have their water turned off, our employee can right there say, hey, you know what, if you have a Visa and you want to be able to, pay it right now, I have the ability to take that payment. I wasn't sure if we had those kinds of tools, and that's just one example. I mean, there's many examples that, it could be, somebody doing permits out on the field, going to different building places or something that the staff has the ability to take payment, right then and there. And so I was just curious, other cities, I guess, are doing this, and I was reading about it, and so I didn't know if we had that ability or not.
Mayor, Councilmember Osborne, I'm not even going to look at our finance director on this one tonight yet, but it's certainly something that we can bring back to you as far as what abilities do we have, and that can even be things, it's a point of sale is what you're referring to. So what do we have in place now that allows for that? And, we can certainly bring back what we have now and then what opportunities we have in the future.
Just enables, our employees to be able to do job for our customers quicker. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Loretano.
Yeah, I just want to thank Brian. I think the chiefs and all of our public safety for today was really bad. I know our neighborhood, it looked like we had it literally this morning about 4 o'clock. It was like literally an ocean going through there. I've never seen it run so bad. And I do appreciate getting the information out and everything. I think that helped a lot. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I was wondering if, since we had so much damage at different places throughout the city, is in a couple weeks, once we assess that, if we could find out where all the damage was and if there was any large costs associated. Because I know we had a couple sinkholes up by us, and just mountains were coming down. And I was looking for my ARC this morning. So if we could just get an update on that later. I didn't go into work this morning. I couldn't even get to work, so I stayed home.
Mayor and Councilmember Loretano, I was looking for the pairs of animals walking down the street. And I also found
on
out,
I-10.
also found out I'm 200 years old today because this is the second 100-year rainfall that I've experienced in Arizona. The last was in 79 and 80. So it makes me 200 years old. But that being said, yes, we are doing storm assessments, and we'll certainly bring back those items that are requiring repairs. Some obviously were repaired today, trees in the roadway, stuff like that. But I think what you're referring to is a little bit longer term. What other repairs do we have to do as a result?
And I think something that really brought up and highlighted when I was watching the Corga wash flow like, a river, that it's really, we need to really work with our homeowners associations to make sure that all those washes are clear of debris and of, limbs and everything, because that could really flood someone's home in some of those areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the retention basins.
Yeah, the retention basins.
Retention basins. While we're talking about today, huge kudos to our staff. The Emergency Operations Center, first time used today, worked out well. We had several people, and you saw their names in the updates that I was providing to council, but special thank you to Tim Newbill, who's the director of the EOC, and then Chief Louisi certainly providing the updates. But there were a lot of people listed in the email. But not only that, we had a lot of staff, whether it's in parks, roads, that were out there, police, fire. They're actually out there working this very hard today. So too many people to thank, but staff did a great job today. I'm very thankful for that.
And one more kudos for you for making the right call and telling your staff that's not essential, not that no one's not essential, but who wasn't needed not to come in. Many jurisdictions didn't do that, and putting those people on the roads is not necessary. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other from the dais? So Brian, you want to just review some of the follow-up areas, because we had a few tonight.
Just a few. Just a few.
The follow-up that I have is, and we do know that for those detailed items that were not specifically approved tonight as part of the changeover of ERP, we'll provide it in a couple of different ways. One is a yellow paper pretty quickly, but the other is regular communications to council in public meetings. And then if there are some of the larger expenditures, we'll get those to you for consideration as well. The other ones that came out tonight, follow-up, is what are the opportunities to post on the website to make it a little more easier to access by our public as far as when major events like today went on. Then question on council limits, what the policy limits for expenditures. That can certainly be talked about at the retreat, and that's really subject to council wanting to put that on the agenda. And then the ability to pay in the field. What do we have, point of sale, what do we have today, and what might be used tomorrow? Those are the follow-up items I had.
Okay, very good. All right, just to give some direction here, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and we're going to start the special meeting agenda. And then when we go into the exec, you can have a break. Does that work for everybody?